What is going on, Knick family? It's your boy, UnclefOOlio, and I'm back with another episode of the Kontroversy, ladies and gentlemen. As always, these episodes are sponsored by Nothing But Knicks. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Also, hit the notification bell to be notified anytime we go live. Pre-game coverage, post-game coverage, shoot-around videos, Coach's Corner videos, controversy videos, Queen's Court videos, NBA report videos. We have it all for you here on Nothing But Knicks and NBK. I have a special guest here with me today. I've been going back and forth with this brother for a long time, discussing a lot of things Knicks. He is the co-host of the Knick of Time Show podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you go check them out. There's a link in the description of this video to the Knick of Time Show to go check him out, along with my man Jay Ellis, my man Raw Hebrew Remnant, Ryan G from Knick of Time Show. Please go check those guys out there. Also, he is a tremendous sports writer for The Guardian, for Deadspin, for Posting and Toasting, and for Sportsnaut, ladies and gentlemen. I have here with me the one and only Lee Escobedo. Lee Escobedo is in the building. What's going on with you, my man?
What's good, brother? It's glad to be face-to-face. We've been going back and forth on the Twitterverse for a couple of weeks now over our varying takes on what's happening with the Knicks.
Right.
Glad to be here representing my brothers in arms, Jay Ellis and Ryan G from the Time Show. I am involved in a lot of things, but the one I rep the most are my boys right here with the KOT Show.
There you go. There you go. And ladies and gentlemen, it's a tremendous podcast. Salute to Jay Ellis. Salute to Ryan G. Appreciate what those guys are doing over there. But I got Lee right here in front of me right now. So let's skip all the pleasantries and let's get into it, because me and him have been going back and forth a lot. Out of respect, obviously. I love the passion it takes, even though we may disagree. I love the passion it takes. So I was like, let me get my brother Lee on here so we can discuss some of this. As you know, ladies and gentlemen, the Knicks have won 6 games in a row. They are now firmly within that the fifth seed going in the Eastern Conference. And Brooklyn, they're 1 game or half a game ahead of Brooklyn right now. And we play Brooklyn coming up, I think, on Wednesday or Thursday, or tomorrow, Wednesday, right? So we're looking to be firmly solidified into that fifth spot by the end of tomorrow night. So Lee, just quickly, just give me your thoughts on what's happening with the Knicks right now, and what are your thoughts about the team?
I was one of the first in the beginning of the season and the only one, to my knowledge, to call a 50-burger. And during the preseason, we were on the Knick of Time Show, and we were going back and forth on our expectations. And I dropped the mic. I was like, I have been watching Jalen Brunson. I'm based in Dallas, born and raised. I've been watching every Mad game for the last 20 years, just as a hater. Watching out of fear, hate, and spite, so that I have the ammunition to debate probably the bummest franchise fans in the NBA. So I've been watching the Mavs, and Jalen Brunson was beginning to emerge. And that first round playoff series was really his coming out party when Luka Doncic was out. I believe the first 3 games of that series, my man balled out. And I saw his ability in pick and roll. I saw his efficiency from 3. I saw his mid-range game. And when the Knicks got him, I was like, between him and his knowledge and understanding relationship with Tibbs prior, his knowledge, understanding relationship with Leon Rose prior, and how badly this team has needed a point guard, not just for the 20 years, but during the duration of Tibbs' coaching tenure and the pieces that have been put in place. Everyone is not a self-starter. They need someone to help initiate their offense, and Brunson's that guy. So when he came to the team and we retained Mitchell Robinson, we retained R.J. Barrett another year quickly, and Grimes developing, I was like, I can see 50. If Julius Randle gets his mental right, this could be a 50-win team. Because I looked at the rest of the East, and at that point, I thought it was pretty weak. And I didn't see anyone really getting better, tremendously better in the offseason. So it was a bold prediction. And, man, January, it was looking rough. That Mavs loss, I was like, oh, this is the worst take of my NBA career. But now we are back on track for a 50-burger, baby. I got the grill fired up. I got enough burger patties for everybody in the house.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about. The Knicks are currently 36-27. Like I said, 5th place in the Eastern Conference right now. There's 19 games left, right? So the Knicks would have to go 14-5 in order for your dream to come true. I don't think the Knicks are going to get 50 wins. I don't. If they do, I'll be happy. I don't think they're going to get 50. I think they'll be probably at 47, 48. Right. And that's way more than what I expected them to do. I expected the Knicks to be under 500. I expected them to be mediocre throughout the season, whether it be a couple games under 500, a couple games over. But they have shown me that they are now a good team, and they're gonna shock a lot of people. My expectation is that they're gonna shock a lot of people. Right. But based off of now what our expectations are now of this team, we've seen this team. We're now in the home stretch of the season, 19 games remaining. Do you think this team is for real? Right, and for real is subjective, right? So for real can mean a different thing for me than it does for you. But what do you think? Like, do you think this team is for real? I'll just leave it there and have you expound on if they are for real and what you think for real means.
This team reminds me a lot of the '99 Finals team, so you kind of expect where I'm going with that. There's not a clear superstar. By that time, Patrick Ewing was aging. Allen Houston was a tier below superstar. Latrell Sprewell was about half a tier below that, and LJ was well past his prime. But collectively, as an organic unit, they were able to bring out the best of each other offensively and defensively, led by a defensive-minded coach, a no-nonsense coach, and happened to be Tibbs' mentor, and Jeff Van Gundy. So I think they were the sum of their parts. This team's very similar. There's not a true superstar, but damn it, Julius Randle's playing like one. And Jalen Brunson's making a case that he might have another level to do where he might be in that conversation next season or 2 seasons down the road. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. It all depends on matchups. It depends on who we play in the first round and then who we play in the second round. There is a scenario where we play Cleveland, we beat them in 6, and we match up with Philly, we beat them in 7. Where are we then?
Eastern Conference Finals, right?
I do not believe we can beat the Milwaukee Bucks. The way they're built, long, athletic, stretchy, hitting from the perimeter. Brook Lopez's ability to stretch the defense from 3, and he's a defensive player of the year candidate this year. He would do Mitch fits. Mitch is a great player, but his ability to stretch the defense with his 3-ball, a very efficient 3-ball, and he used to be one of the best post players in the NBA in the early 2010s. He's got the whole package. He would give us fits in the post. Plus, that's Giannis. We don't have Josh Hart 6'4", Quentin Grimes 6'5". We don't have the length and the athleticism to keep up with him. Plus, Chris Middleton's bid for a 2. Drew Holiday's bid for a 1. Not only will we have trouble stopping them, they have a length to put on Jalen Brunson. And when you slow down Jalen Brunson, you slow down our entire offense. And then we start getting the ISO ball, one-on-one mentality, and the worst of Tibbs comes out. So if we can avoid Milwaukee, we can go as far in the East as possible. I think we can beat Boston in the 7-game series. Although I will say right now, even though we beat Boston, fully healthy, they're a better team than we are. Fully healthy, Philadelphia is a slightly better team than we are too. But in the playoffs, anything can happen. And Brunson showed how good of a playoff performer he is last season.
All right. I mean, listen, you said some things there. So I just want to first, touch on the fact that you said that, if they slow down Brunson because of their length, right? That's one of the big concerns that I have about Jalen Brunson. Don't get me wrong. Jalen Brunson's been playing phenomenal. He's been a godsend. The front office deserves a lot of credit. So all those people, or the naysayers, the front office needs to do more. That was something that they did this past offseason, and it's worked tremendously. That is an A+ signing. No question about that. I never understood the people that were really detractors about bringing in Jalen Brunson, right? So I think that's A+. My concern about the Knicks is going to be because they rely on a lot of ball handling from Jalen Brunson at the end of games. And we've seen it sometimes this season. Teams would put their best wing defender on Jalen Brunson, their longest and their biggest wing defender on Jalen Brunson, and limited what he was doing at the end of games, which he became more prone to turnovers. Jalen Brunson, throughout the course of the game, does not turn the ball over a lot. Very smart, very crafty, finesse type of player. But at the end of those games, particularly those games where we were like the Knicks blew another lead, or, we were up by this amount of points and we wound up giving that lead back, maybe close some of those games out, maybe lose them. I think that was the common denominator in all of that. Teams are going to put their best wing defender on Jalen Brunson, and because of his size, it kind of limits what he can do, and it makes him kind of do some uncharacteristic things, right? So if that happens, now you give the ball to Julius Randle, who we know teams can pressure and put different defenses on, and cause him to make some mistakes at the end of games. And we've seen that earlier this season. My solution to that is putting someone on the floor like Emmanuel quickly. I think that's going to be the X factor at the end of games, and basically let the offense run through Emmanuel quickly, turn Jalen Brunson and turn Julius Randle into finishers. Jalen Brunson's one of the best finishers in the NBA, and the way Randle's playing right now, he's going to get his shot off against anyone. I just think that's something that Tibbs can do, which he has put quickly on the floor, but hadn't put the ball in his hands a lot at the end of games, making him off the ball. I think that's something we can do to kind of counteract that. So I do agree with you. I think it does depend on matchups and the coaching, what happens throughout the course of those games. My big thing for me is when I say for real, I'm talking strictly about playoff time. Because wherever the Knicks finish 4, 5, or 6, they're going to go up against a Cleveland or Philly, right? So no matter where they finish, they're going to face those teams. But they need to show up. I'm sorry. They need to show up. This team reminds me a lot of what happened 2 years ago. They got on the run at the right time. The acquisition of Derrick Rose got on that run this season. Josh Hart, right? And there was expectations going into that playoffs. We didn't have it at the beginning of the season, but that quickly changed when the Knicks got up to that 4th seed. So that's my envision. When I say the Knicks are for real, can they be able to get into the playoffs and win some series, but most importantly, be competitive? And that's my definition of for real. The win against Boston last night definitely showed us that they have the capability to do it. The question is, will they do it once they get there? So I definitely agree with some of the stuff that you said. Let me just get some of the chat in here. Salute to Pudge Nice. He said he had 48 wins. Nikki B from Harlem says salute. Cameron Goldberg, this team better be for real, otherwise people should be fired. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that based on some things that you said that I want to get to about people being fired. Nikki B from Harlem, 4th seed and 45 and 48 wins is within the reach. 50 is a bit hot, too high, I think. Okay. Keith Turner, happy Celtics Day. What's good, everybody? Salute to you. Angel Torres, my number in the NBK show before season started was 47. The Knicks are 12 games away from that. Right now, they are, 11 games away from that. Right now, they're 36 wins. Let's see. Cavs, Philly, Boston is the easiest path to the finals. I don't agree. I like Boston. You like Milwaukee, I like Boston. I think Boston is the best team in the Eastern Conference, in my opinion. David L. says, some fans not surprised with the 5th seed is our expectations. We were sloppy, now we not. Okay, whatever. So next thing that I want to talk about real quick, and I want to get your opinion on. I mentioned that there is a parallel to 2 years ago, right? And some of the things that happened and transpired 2 years ago. Outside of the obvious, the Jalen Brunson, what are some of the things that you think are different from this team compared to 2 years ago? And why is this team different than what happened 2 years ago? Or what transpired 2 years ago?
One name, Mitchell Robinson. Mitch was injured during that first round series in Atlanta, and Clint Capella feasted. It reminded me of when Tyson Chandler made Roy Hibbert look like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in that series back in the day when the Knicks played the Pacers during the Melo era. It was straight embarrassing. Clint Capella was, the drop coverage, he was knocking out everything the guards tried to come in, and we had some pretty weak guards. Reggie Bullock, RJ Barrett was a neophyte at the time. Elfrid Payton, what a bum. It was a bad team. There was a lot of non-self-initiators, self-starters, guys that needed someone that get them going. And the only one who did get their own shot in that 5-man lineup, Nerlens Noel being the other guy, was Julius Randle. So they just doubled him, tripled him, took the ball out of his hands, forced turnovers, and made other guys like Reggie Bullock. They put Trae Young on Reggie Bullock and said, Reggie Bullock, put the ball on the floor. And he couldn't. He's a catch and shoot guy. That's what we've seen with him, with the Lakers, with Detroit, with us, with the Mavs. That's all he is. That's always ever going to be. He's efficient at that, but that's what he is. So they were able to scheme for us really well. And Derrick Rose broke down in the playoffs. It came to a point where he could no longer carry the load of being the starting guard when Tibbs pulled Peyton and benched him in favor of Derrick Rose. We had a different team this time. We're deeper. We're more talented. We have more on-ball defenders, more on-ball initiators. We got 3-level scorers and Emmanuel Quickly. RJ Barrett's turning to that. Brunson, Julius Randle's playing the best ball of his career. And it's not about high abstract efficiencies. He was shooting like 41% from three. He's back to normal. But it's how he's taking advantage of mismatches, how he's responding to rim reads, how he's responding to open guys and his teammates and getting guys involved, but also finding his own spots and shots when he has mismatches and he has a weaker opponent on him defensively. I think we're a more trained team, a more ready team. Jalen Brunson obviously is our initiator, but Mitchell Robinson in the middle, it don't matter who we face. We have an equalizer for the Jared Allens, for the Robert Williams in the world, and we can match up with them defensively and offensively with Mitchell Robinson's ability to be a lob threat and an offensive rebounder.
I 100% agree with you. I think that the biggest difference is Mitchell Robinson. And people forget that he didn't play in that first round series before. It was Nerlens Noel. And you're right about the drop coverage and the type of defenses that they were throwing at Julius Randle that Atlanta, put out there on the floor. I do think another difference, obviously, you can't say enough about Jalen Brunson and what he's going to bring to this team for playoff time, right? I think, and to me, and this may sound controversial, to me, I think Mitchell Robinson is the most important player on this team from a coaching perspective. Tibbs loves his shot blockers. He loves his shot blockers. He loves having people out there to defend the paint, whether the person's blocking shots or whether the person's just being someone that can alter shots up in the air. I think that's really huge. And I think it's easier for Tibbs to coach that way by having Mitchell Robinson out there on the floor. So I agree with you. I think that is the biggest difference. Along with Jalen Brunson and what he's given us at the point guard position now. Got another ball handler on the floor throughout the course of the game to kind of slow things down. But I will say they better show up.
Yeah.
They better show up. There's no excuses. I don't want to hear anything, right? My expectations, although they were different at the beginning of the season, just like 2 years ago, the expectations have shifted. And I think Knick fans, you can't say, well, you didn't expect anything of them, so how can you now change? I think throughout the course of the season, that stuff changes and your expectations change. And that win last night, what we seen against Boston, how they basically clamped Boston, they only had 90-something points or whatever it is. That's a statement win. So come playoff time, you better show up. And in order for you to get respect in this league and the NBA, you have to start winning playoff series and you have to show up in the playoffs, right? So that's what I'm looking forward to the Knicks doing, and there should be no excuse why they don't give me anything else other than competitive basketball, at least in the first round. Second, third round, teams get a little bit more tougher, stuff like that, matchups. I understand, but you got to be competitive, and that's something that I'm expecting to see from this team moving forward. Do you care about the fourth seed at all? Because a lot of Knicks fans think we can make the fourth seed. I think we can, but is that something that you care about, that you're gonna hang your hat on at the end of the season if the playoffs not as successful as we think that it's going to be?
Only in terms of home court advantage, although that didn't play very well for us last time when the Hawks were the fifth seed. We were the fourth, and they beat us in 5 games with absolute smacking. So, yeah, if it comes in handy, that second round, though, we're not going to be better than Philly, Boston, or Milwaukee record-wise. So we're not going to have home court advantage against them no matter what. But it would really be in handy when we play the Hawks, the Heat, the Nets, or the Cavs. But I think the fifth seed would be the same as the fourth. So I'm really not worried about the Cavs at all. So that fourth seed, I think, is just a cherry on top to a very successful season so far.
Okay, so in regards to the first round, do you like the Cavs matchup better than the Phillies matchup?
Yes.
Why do you like the Cavs better than Philly?
Because the Cavs have absolutely no depth. And not only that, they have maybe the worst starting small forward of any of the playoff teams there in the Eastern Conference right now. And Isaac Okoro, who's a very good defender, very good team player, great intangibles, can't score or save his life. Horrible three-point shooter. And when you pair him with 2 other guys that limit your spacing, and Evan Mobley, who's a future all-star, but isn't one now, and Jared Allen, who's a current all-star, but have very limited offensive games. Jared Allen's like Mitch, hyper-athletic, lob threat, offensive rebound guru. But these guys can't shoot. They can't spread the floor. So it's so much of a reliance on both Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell to be full-on scoring threats every single game. If one of those 2 guys is off, they lose a game.
Right.
I don't care if Archie's also having a bad game or Randall's having a bad game. If one of those guys is off, they're not going to lose a series, but they'll lose a game in question if both of them are not shooting, not just scoring a lot, but shooting efficiently, because their bench is so thin. They got Raul Neto, they got Dean Wade. Those guys aren't scaring anyone. Those guys can't match up with Josh Hart, Emmanuel Quickley, and Isaiah Hartenstein. We have a better bench. I think we have a better starting 5. It's just more equal and more balanced on both sides of the ball. Their 3 guys in the front court are extremely good, elite defenders, but their backcourt is very porous. Both guys are 6'1". Both had defensive inefficiencies, and their front court has trouble scoring. So I think we beat them. I think we're a more balanced attack. We have a better roster, and I think we have a better coach.
Okay, so let me throw this at you now. I agree with everything you said in regards to Cleveland. I think that's the Knicks should play Cleveland. I think that's their best chance to get out of the first round, in my opinion, based on the standings right now. Donovan Mitchell. It's going to come up. Obviously, if the Knicks are going to play Cleveland in the first round, the whole Donovan Mitchell question is going to pop up. I'm not sure what your take was in regards to bringing in someone like that. But how do you feel about the people that say if the Knicks were to, and I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, talking about the playoffs now, but I think it's appropriate. I think the Knicks will make the playoffs, 4th, 5th, or 6th. Do you think it will be appropriate for the people that were naysayers about the Donovan Mitchell trade, or potentially bringing him to the Knicks? Do you think it's appropriate for those people to say, see, it's okay, it's okay that we didn't get him. It's okay that we didn't get him. How would you feel about that dynamic if the Knicks were to, beat Cleveland as we both expect them to do, or at least I expect them to be competitive? I still got Cleveland winning that series, but how would you feel about that?
That's a miserable ass take from probably a miserable ass fan. I think that Donovan Mitchell, I was for. I wanted us to go get him, but not for any of the packages that I heard Leon Rose was offering. I thought the initial package was absurd. Not only
the OB Mitch, and that package, right?
Mitchell Robinson. The trades that to me bring the most value are the ones where you're trading out positionally. It's a swap, an even swap. So you're trading a 2 for a 2, or maybe a 2 for a 3, or a 1
Right.
for a 1 or a 5 for a 5. When you're trading our backup 4, our starting 5, and our starting 3 for a 2, that brings a lot of imbalance to the roster, and especially the starting lineup. You also are removing the core piece, as you referenced, the Tom Thibodeau's offense and defense in Mitchell Robinson. And what are you getting back? Now Isaiah Hartenstein is starting. Now Jericho Sims is your backup center in the playoffs. We didn't have the first round with that roster. The same reasons I have against Cleveland, I would have against the Knicks if we had made that deal. Now, if it was just RJ Barrett and 5 picks, 3 unprotected, 2 swaps, I would have done it in a heartbeat. Now you're playing with fire, and I think we could actually even go deeper than we are right now in this year's postseason. But I'm happy with the team that we have. We're fully stocked with the draft capital cachet that we need to make the major trade in the future. We have tradable contracts. That Evan Fournier contract is going to be crucial this summer when it becomes expiring next year. And we have guys
or during the deadline next year,
or
during the deadline. Yeah,
and we got guys that other teams won't now.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you for the most part. Here's what I will say: that first trade, obviously, I didn't like that. The Mitch and Obi and RJ trade, I didn't like that one specifically. However, I was on board with trading RJ Barrett for Donovan Mitchell. A lot of people weren't. I was. I think that would have been, because that's that 1-for-1 swap that you're talking about, whether RJ plays a 2 or a 3, whatever. You know what I mean? I think Donovan Mitchell is a difference maker, and I still think the reason why I don't have the Knicks beating Philadelphia is because they're still missing. And granted, Jalen Brunson and Randall, they're playing great basketball. But I think when the game is on the line, Philly can just throw the ball down to Embiid, and no one can stop him at all. I think there's limitations with Brunson, particularly when you put your best defender on him. And you can scheme defenses to limit Julius Randle. I don't care how good he's playing, but we've seen Julius Randle break down at the end of games, right? So, to me, I still think the Knicks are still missing that one piece to take them to that even next level where we're talking perennial 1, 2, 3 seed, right? They're still missing that piece. And I think we still can get it. But to those people who are saying, if the Knicks win that series against Cleveland, see, this is the reason why you don't do it, No, you still got to have a guy like that. Obviously, you don't want to give up the entire team for him. But I still think the Knicks would have had some pieces left in the cupboard, not with the first trade, but the subsequent trades after that, RJ Barrett especially, that they could have been able to compete and contend in the Eastern Conference. That's just my opinion. But we'll see. We'll see how that all kind of plays out. Let me get back to the chat, get a couple more in here before I move on. Let's see. Marion Davis says, you're both on fire. Great show. Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, please smash the like button. Hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed, and subscribe to the channel and like. And if you have any comments that you want to leave, I check this often. Right. So I'm not one of the people that just doesn't pay attention to the comments. I pay attention to what you have to say. And it means a lot that you leave in the comments. So please leave your comments and your thoughts down below and let me know, myself and Lee, know what you think. Also, go into the description of this video, like and subscribe to Knick of Time Show, and check out the articles that I have posted, Lee's latest articles on Deadspin, as well as Sportsnaut. I think they're tremendous reads, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But L says, Embiid is both our guys, bummish and room put together some nights, and be one-man front court on offense. So I think he's saying that Embiid is a one-man front court on offense. I agree. I think that Philly series is going to be tough. I get it. We played them great during the regular season. I just think when you got someone like that, James Harden playing, can step it up in the playoffs, as we all know. And just like I want the Knicks to have someone like Emmanuel quickly on the floor to be that third ball handler, they got Tyrese Maxey. And right now he's coming off the bench. And I think that's going to be a really big part of what Philadelphia is going to do. I'm not saying they're going to win a championship. I'm not saying that. But as far as the matchup against us, that's where I think we can, it's going to be tough for us. Ally, salute to you. He says, Cavs, terrible road team, and Knicks a good road team. Cavs. Okay. So he's saying that it doesn't matter between the 4th or 5th seed. I got you already. The public enemy number 1. Yeah, Donovan Mitchell will come up, a loser after being put out the playoffs. All right. Keith Turner, y'all better stop disrespecting Cleveland. I love the season we're having, but we ain't beating them in a 7-game series. Got to be realistic about it. Now, I agree with Keith here. I still think I like Cleveland in that series. Lee, I totally understand what you're saying about Cleveland and some of the stuff that they're missing. But that team is young. They have an immediate playoff experience. They were in the playoffs last season. Darius Garland is a really good point guard. And they're going to give us some fits. Let's not forget about Evan Mobley either. Evan Mobley's young, but he is very, very talented, and we do struggle with him sometimes as well. So I do kind of agree with Keith Turner. I will give the advantage to Cleveland, but a slight, very, very slight advantage to Cleveland in that series, in my opinion. All right, let's get a couple more. Let's see. Get someone new in here. Kai Ju, hey now, salute Knick Nation from Portugal. Salute. Portugal's in the building, ladies and gentlemen. Portugal is here. And Danny Landis says, Pudge nice, salute. Okay. Salute, bro. Still want to beat the Celtics when they have Jaylen Brown. Me too. All right. So we spoke about Donovan Mitchell. So I just want to pull something up, ladies and gentlemen. Like I mentioned, Lee is a tremendous NBA writer, sports writer for a bunch of different platforms, Deadspin, Sportsnaut, posting and toasting. You can definitely check his stuff out. Follow him on Twitter, and you'll have the links to all that stuff. And I posted some links in here as well. But Lee wrote an article on Deadspin that got Twitter going crazy and got me going at him a little bit, right? And this is not the whole article. I just posted a little snippet of it. In this article, Lee talks about Tom Thibodeau and the pros and cons of having Tom Thibodeau as a coach, right? And this little snippet right here was from the cons of it. So I just want to read this, but I would have to put out there, full disclosure, there's a whole article to read. So there's a lot of pros and there's a lot of cons on there. But I just took this one part out. So don't think I'm just, feeding it for my narrative or whatever. Lee does a tremendous job. Please check the article out. Link in the description. He says, Tibbs supporters continue to shake ass for mediocre benchmarks like effort, team defense, and making the play-in. Metrics Tibbs excels at as a head coach. But for the Knicks to take advantage of their high upside young core, they would need to hire someone better than Tibbs at adjusting to the modern game. To take that next step, they need someone who is an elite in-game adjuster and willing to divert from their game plan when it stops working. Thibodeau's biggest enemy is himself. All right, Lee, the floor is yours. I want you to just kind of expand on what you mean by some of the stuff that you said, and just kind of dive into it a little bit. And let's go back and forth on this. I want to hear your perspective live.
Sure.
Yeah.
The star of that article and the majority of the article was me giving flowers to Tom Thibodeau, which is something that I hadn't done in a while in my writing. I'm known to be one of the loudest fired Tibbs haters on Twitter and on my podcast. Of the four of us, I'm definitely the loudest one. I've gotten many debates with callers and my co-hosts on the merits of Tom Thibodeau as a head coach who win you a championship. But the flowers that I gave him is I think he's underrated in a lot of respects. And the main one is his ability to be a developer. I think if you go back to the Chicago days and the things that he did on the defensive side for Joakim Noah, bringing out the best defensively from Carlos Boozer, the best from Ronnie Brewer, turning Derrick Rose into an MVP candidate, turning Kirk Heinrich into one of the best defensive guards in the NBA at that time. Lou Aldane turned him into a perennial all-star player who ended up being a two-time all-star after he left. He got the best out of a core that probably at its face value was a 42-43 win team. And not only did he turn guys into a winning culture, but he turned them into the defensive player of the year in Noah's case, and MVP in Derrick Rose's case. He's done the same thing here with the Knicks. I would say and argue that he has maximized Mitchell Robinson's potential as much as he has Joakim Noah. And we got an MVP candidate right now in Julius Randle, 7th in NBA.com's power rankings. Jalen Brunson has leaps and bounds, efficiency, splits, attempts, points, assists from what he was in Dallas. So he has maximized this roster now to its full potential. I didn't see that at the beginning of the season. I was there live and direct in American Airlines Center in Dallas, and we had an unbelievable fourth-quarter collapse against the Dallas Mavericks. And I watched with my own eyes. I was there in my pods, and I was talking so much smack. I ended up getting booed out of that arena. They booed me out and were like, "Get the F out," because I was ready to throw hands, man. I hate Mav fans with a passion, and to lose in that fashion to that fan base was a disgrace. And the way he did it, man, his worst trait is his arrogance. He has a game plan, and 45% of the time that game plan works out. If this was 2008, 2009, 75% of the time it would have worked out. But the NBA has evolved past his over-reliance on drop coverage with his center, isolation plays with his best players, and his overall schematics that minimizes ball movements and over-relies on one-on-one mismatches on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, people were like, why did Evan Fournier leave that guy in the corner open? Well, it's that's the way Thibodeau coaches a team. He schemes that way on purpose to make sure that when someone's driving, and if that person driving is Luka Doncic, you collapse in the center with three guys out, and the guys who are guarding the perimeter are coming to the center to make sure that he don't score 2 points. But last I checked, 3 points is more than 2. So we leave our perimeter guys open way too much. What's happened in the last couple of weeks? He's changed all of that. We've clamped down defensively on the perimeter and become one of the best three-point defending teams in the league, thanks to Tibbs turning a corner and changing a lot of the things that fans like myself were just asking for, clamoring for, begging for him to do for 2.5 seasons. He's
Like,
doing it.
like what though? What has changed over the past couple of weeks from a scheme standpoint, in your opinion?
First of all, with the roster rotations and substitutions, Leon Rose had to remove Alec Burks and Nerlens Noel from the team in order for Tibbs not to use him as a crutch. He still had Evan Fournier and his favorite player, Derrick Rose. That was a Tibbs decision to bench Evan Fournier, give Cam a shot, and then give Quentin Grimes a shot as a starter, and actually remove Derrick Rose completely from rotation, which is probably the most surprising thing I've ever seen Tibbs do in his career as a head coach of the Knicks, is to take him and in place play IQ more, which he should have done last season as a primary backup lead guard off the bench, and Deuce McBride be the third string guard. That, to me, has that rotation tightening and change after that game against Dallas has turned our complete season around. Also, on the ball, Jalen Brunson is actually actively, as well as Julius Randle, trying not just to be a primary facilitator, but a secondary and tertiary passer to not just, when you catch the ball, okay, it's been passed 3 times. When you catch the ball, it's still your responsibility to keep it moving until the open shot is found, and that guy has an opportunity to hit the most highest percentage shot, whether it's a 3, a mid-range, or a drive to the basket. Guys are actually moving off ball. There's more off-ball action happening. Julius Randle is acting as a decoy in certain moments. Grimes and Brunson are acting as decoys as our 2 hottest 3-point shooters. But there's still things that aren't happening. Obi Toppin's only getting 12, 14 minutes a game. When he's in there, he's playing him like he's just a catch-and-shoot shooter in the corners. When he's not really being utilized as full athletic ability, and his one-man transition game is being stunted, that's something I would love to see either him move so he can find that opportunity elsewhere, or Tibbs finally integrates that more into the offense so we have a different little wrinkle that we can add offensively to take advantage of mismatches and teams when we play someone who's more half court like Cleveland in the playoffs.
All right, so you said a lot. Okay, so I'm gonna go all the way back to the beginning. The first part, and I disagree with you. I don't think there is some stuff I would like to see Thibodeau do differently, but you just can't argue with the way the team is playing right now. And I get it. You said he's been doing some things in the past couple of weeks that are different than that traditional Tibbs. There is some things that I think are different. But to start off, the first part you said about players getting playing time and Tibbs leaning on Nerlens Noel and Alec Burks instead of playing some of the younger guys. I couldn't disagree with that point more. There was this big movement, play the kids last season and stuff like that. I think it takes time, and I think there is a pecking order in the NBA that has to happen naturally, right? There's some teams that play their young players right away, and it doesn't necessarily work for the best, right? Because you expose them too early. I think that might have happened with Kevin Knox. You expose them to the fire too early. They lose confidence and they never develop into the players that they could become because you expose them too early to that fire, so to speak. For some teams it works, for some teams it doesn't. Tibbs' strategy, and I think it's old school, and as a former coach myself, I understand there's a pecking order in the NBA. If Tibbs would have played some of these young guys a lot last season, right, I don't think they will be in the spot that they are now to be able to flourish, right? And how do we know as a fan base, as fans, that the whole plan all along was to bring these guys along, slowly give them minutes here and there until they built their confidence up and then put them out there on the floor, right? I just think at that moment, back then, last season, 2 seasons ago, we were so caught up in what was happening at that very moment, we didn't see the long-term plan of that. And I think right now, it's clear what the Knicks were doing. That's why they got off of those contracts of Nerlens Noel, Kemba Walker, and Alec Burks, because they already knew they had these guys coming in the wings and they want to get more time. Right, it's obvious. That's why they benched Derrick Rose from the start of the season and Evan Fournier. Right, and to me, and next season, Isaiah Hartenstein's not going to be here. He's going to be a trade chip that's going to be moved out at some point, in my opinion. So to me, I just think when it comes to that part of it, I think that was an organizational Tibbs front office type of decision to eventually bring the kids along slowly, and then now they're starting to flourish. The play the kids movement, playing them last season, obviously we don't know how that would have turned out to them being this year, but how can you argue with what the kids are doing right now? And the minutes that Quentin Grimes is getting right now, and Emmanuel Quickly right now, Mitchell Robinson right now, you know what I mean? So I want you to respond to that, and then I'll get to some of the other stuff that you said.
Oh, man, that's one of the points. I can't remember the last time I heard a point that I disagreed more with than what you said.
Okay.
If Alec Burks was a capable and competent true point guard that made his teammates better and helped the Knicks win games at a significant metric, I would agree with you. But unfortunately, he's a wing player who's played best at the 2 or the 3 as a 3-and-D defender with a little bit of on-ball capabilities. He's not a point guard. When the Kemba Walker experiment failed, and we really showed our ass to be a team that's better suited for the lottery at that point than we were a real playoff contender. We should not the kids. I don't mean Jericho Sims come in and start at center. That's not what I mean. When I say the kids, I'm speaking primarily as Obi Toppin between 17 and 20 minutes last season, and Emmanuel Quickly being able to run the point for the last 30 to 35 games of a season after Kemba Walker didn't work. There's no reason why a small forward should have started at point guard when he wasn't doing any justice to anyone else on that team or himself to have that opportunity. Maybe off the bench, maybe Albert starts, but not at point. Why not let Emmanuel Quickly show you what he's capable of? Because it hasn't really been that much of a difference. Quickly was still getting minutes. They just weren't the starting position. He wasn't playing with the starters, gain continuity with Randall, Mitch, and Barrett. That's what I wanted. Not the fact that he's playing 30 minutes, but only with the bench guy. I wanted him in that starting unit against other starters, taking his lumps and learning and growing from that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree. I think we are on different ends of the fence here, and I'm looking at salute to For the Love of the Game podcast because me and Harl Will from For the Love of the Game podcast, salute to those guys over there. We were arguing about this all the time, and I just disagree. Alec Burks? Okay.
What benefit did we have from Alec Burks at point guard? Like, what did the Knicks gain institutionally and as a microcosm? What did he gain?
I think the reason why Tom Thibodeau went with Alec Burks was because of the size, and Alec Burks can give us clutch shooting, right, that we didn't have, right? And I also think, again, it's that veteran, having that veteran out there on the floor, and he can knock down shots, and the size. I think that was something that's why Tibbs went to that. Now, clearly it didn't work. I think there was a lot of different problems that it didn't work with, but I also think that Thibodeau and the front office didn't think Quickly was ready for that type of responsibility. That's why we see what's happening right now. You know what I mean? I just think it's easy to look back and say, well, this player should have been playing that, or else they would be so much better now. They didn't play the way you wanted them to play last season, and they're flourishing now. So obviously, whatever the Knicks did, it worked. Look what's happening right now. How can we argue and say and use, something that we don't know to say that they could have been something else when right now, in the moment, right now, they're performing well, right? And it just seems like the plan that they've done and how they limited the minutes and put those veterans out there. Because remember, when the Knicks signed all of those veterans, they only had 7 players on the roster when they start signing all those veterans, the Kembas, the Nerlens, the Alec Burks, and Taj Gibsons and all of that. They had to fill the roster out with veteran players. They had to, right? So those players are on the roster. I think any coach that has ever coached before understand that there's a pecking order in basketball and any team you're dealing with. And you not only have to balance what happens on the floor, but you also have to balance the matters that are in the locker room, right? And I just think that it wasn't their time to play last year. Their time to play is right now, and that's why they're performing, and the majority of our roster is young, and they're doing everything that we wanted them to do right now. You know what I mean? So I just think people often don't understand the social aspect of it, right? There's the basketball aspect, but there is also the social aspect. And you ask, I think a lot of people, if you would ask a lot of the young kids right now, the Quickleys, the Obies, the Quentin Grimes, how much they appreciate those veterans that were in that locker room last year, and how Tibbs and Deuce McBride and how Tibbs was doing his lineups last year, they would say they definitely appreciate it. I think one of the biggest reasons why the Knicks brought in those veterans was to shield some of the young guys. Think about the Knicks won. Okay, do you think the Knicks would have won more games by playing Quickly a lot more minutes and playing them the way you wanted them to? And Obi?
At the point in which that decision should have been made, it wasn't about wins or losses. It was about development.
But they're developed now, though. That's my point. So how can we?
Just because they're developing now doesn't mean that also wouldn't have happened if he would have started or even be better than it was if it hadn't been that situation. Yeah, like the way that it worked out, Quickly's developed into a great sixth man. But if we would have started him, he might actually be a starting caliber point guard right now. Both ways, both divergent paths could have ended in success. I don't think you can just say, "Oh, it's successful," so there's no way that other route couldn't be successful. They both could have been successful. Could have developed even more than what he is right now.
No. I mean, and I completely get it. I understand it could have, and I understand, what could have happened. I get it. But I think the argument that a lot of people have when it comes to that, or what you're saying, a lot of the argument from the other side is the Knicks didn't have a plan. Like Tibbs was just relying on these old guys to go out there and play for him with no plan. He's stubborn. All he wants to do is play his old guys and lean on his old guys. When now we're watching the team right now, and that has not been the case. So to me, and the clip, I want the front office to speak more about, speak to the media so we can kind of get an understanding of what they're thinking. Right. But it's obvious what they're doing. It's obvious that they've had a plan since they got here 3 years ago, that they were going to bring this along slow and eventually give these guys time. Like Deuce McBride getting major minutes this year, like Derrick Rose on the bench, Evan Fournier on the bench. I just think that is kind of played out. But okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I disagree with that. I don't think the plan was what we have right now. I think this was a cosmic alchemy that happened by chance of the great players that had an opportunity to grow because of Tibbs' development this season. Where we are right now is not because of a decision to play Albert Burks for 35 games last year and then attach a pick to unload his contract over the summer. That 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. I think we got here because Jalen Brunson got here, and under Tibbs unlocked his potential and ability to be a starting guard and to be an all-star caliber player, which by its effect enhanced everyone else's ability around him, including Julius Randle to be the primary scorer and so the primary facilitator too. I think if Albert Burks would have been a real point guard, I think, damn, Quickly could have learned from him. But he's a small forward playing a point guard's role. Not only do we not win games, we stunted Quickly's opportunity to get real-time minutes. Again, I'm not talking about Deuce McBride or Jericho Sims last year. I'm talking about specifically about Obi Toppin getting 17 and 20 off the bench and Quickly starting for those last 30 games. Because he wasn't surrounded by young guys. Those are veterans around him. Mitch, Fournier, RJ, Randall.
But Mitch isn't a veteran. Mitch isn't a veteran. Neither is RJ. But okay, go ahead.
Guys have been starting since almost from the point where they joined the team. RJ started from day one. Mitch started at the end of year one. These are guys. This is continuity, and Quickly could have learned and gained from that continuity and increased as a player and met his potential sooner, I think, at a higher level than what we all have. But I'm happy with the results.
I got you. I got you. We probably differ on how we get there, but I get it. I totally understand. I mean, RJ started from day one, and look where RJ is right now. You know what I mean? So, either way,
different players though.
They are. They're very much so different. The second part of what you said in regards to what Tibbs is doing from a schematic standpoint. So on December 3rd, that was when we played the Dallas Mavericks, right? Or December 2nd, December 3rd, or something like that. And Tibbs, after that, went to the 9-man rotation, right? And everyone criticized that Tibbs plays his players too much. His, very archaic, and Julius Randle gets all these minutes. And you mentioned in your article that even though the numbers show that Julius Randle didn't play as many minutes as we thought he did, since that time, those minutes have shot up based on all the metrics. And again, once again, everybody checking the link in the description of this video to go read the article, read the whole thing, right? Because that's where I'm basing my information off of. So what I'm going to do is just pull up the stats. I'm going to pull up the numbers, and I'm going to have everyone see it. This is a graphic of all the numbers from the Knicks regular season overall compared to what has been happening since December 3rd, since they went to that 9-man rotation. So obviously, the Knicks were at that point, I think they were 10 and 13 at that point, right? And these are some of the numbers you see: 114 points per game, which is way better than what they've been doing over the past couple seasons. Offensive numbers, not great. Still one of the best rebounding teams in the NBA because of Mitchell Robinson. Kind of middle of the pack kind of numbers. Opponent's field goal percentage, something Tibbs hangs his hat on based off what you're saying. It doesn't work, but in the regular season, altogether, the Knicks are one of the best, teams as far as defense is concerned in the NBA. And since that time period, on the right, you see these numbers here, the defensive numbers: opponent's points per game at the bottom, third in the NBA, opponent's field goal percentage, third in the NBA, opponent's three-point percentage. Teams are shooting 23% from three against the Knicks since December 3rd. You can't say enough about those numbers. Combine that with the fact of they're rebounding the basketball, still one of the best rebounding teams in the NBA, and they're doing just enough on offense, middle of the pack, to be where they are right now. I want to hear you explain some of these schematic differences that you've seen and how it's not working in today's NBA when clearly the Knicks are playing some of those same systems.
I think what he did the most on defense was actually commit to defend the three-point line at a higher volume and a higher usage for his guards. And having Isaiah Hartenstein, Jericho Sims, and once Mitch was back, go out to the perimeter and guard the perimeter, because these are starting to face centers that have more of a stretch ability than guys who are posting up on a block. It just made sense in terms of ratio-wise to have your centers and power forwards rotate and switching on defense opposed to remain stationary and just anticipating a drive and kick. So that, to me, number one, that you didn't show those numbers, but the defense on the perimeter in the last 5 and 10 game sample size since Mitch returned has been top 3 in the NBA. I saw that metric pushed around on ESPN yesterday when Kendrick Perkins was talking about the Knicks. It was floating around on Twitter. So that's been the biggest change, is that he's starting to evolve and realize that teams were beating us and outscoring us because of our issues, scoring points per game at a higher volume than most of a team. I think we're like 29th or 30th in offense, and we're dead last in pace. So he's realized
dead last in pace. Yeah.
That's another example of him playing an outdated system. Instead of actually trying to push the ball, he wants to slow it down and get his best half-court players in their desired sets and locations to score the high percentage shots, which is all fine and well, but you're not taking full advantage of the athleticism of guys like Quentin Grimes, Emmanuel Quickly, and RJ Barrett. You're putting them in situations where they have to share a space with each other, because there's a lot of overlap between where Brunson, RJ, and Randall score the best. And instead of utilizing them in fast-paced situations where you can give and go, we're seeing a little bit more of that. We're seeing more of that in the half-court set too. Randall and Brunson are actually choosing whether it's a play call, Tibbs is calling it or not. I'm not going to take away credit or give credit, but they are choosing to pass when they had the opportunity to ISO. And we saw that in the game 2 nights ago when Randall gave up almost breaking his career high and caught Mitch under the basket for the seal of the game. That was, to me, a revelation. I was like, damn, whether that was a Tibbs call or a Randall call, it didn't matter, because it showed a real quantifiable change in the approach of how the Knicks are scoring and how they're looking individually to get points on the board. They're looking for each other instead of looking for themselves.
I mean, I agree with you for the most part. I think that specific play, I think that was more about Randall and his IQ improving, because last season, Randall would have kept that ball for himself. He would have turned it over. And earlier this season, sometimes he was doing that. So I think that's more about Randall. But overall, I think you are correct as far as the offense is concerned. I've always been an advocate for the Knicks moving the basketball a lot more, playing with a quicker pace. I think that is something that needs to happen in today's NBA, unless you're Dallas, who has a dominant isolation player like Luka. I think the Knicks and Dallas are like 29-30 in pace, right? And 1 and 2 as far as isolation plays in the entire NBA, and the Lakers are up there, something like that, right? So I agree with you from that standpoint. I've always been on that type of wave. Not the other stuff about the how Tibbs is playing the players and everything like that, but that's something that I think Tibbs can improve on. As far as the defense is concerned, you can't question what Tom Thibodeau is doing on defense. It's working. It's been working every single year, even back when he was with Chicago. Like his lack of defense or the perceived lack of defense, of strategy and stuff like that has worked for years. He's been doing it for years. That's his bread and butter. So you can't really question that. How can you question the numbers, right? And now the wins, you can't question that, right? The offense, I'm with you all day long as far as adapting and needing to improve. But the defense, to me, I just think it's very difficult to question that. Now, granted, early in the season, the drop coverage was something that wasn't helping us. It was a detriment to everything that we were doing. And I think it cost us games. We were one of the worst at defending the 3 in the NBA. But since then, I mean, putting Quentin Grimes out there, right? A young player that people said wasn't getting a lot of time, putting him out there, putting Deuce McBride out there, some of these young players out there that defend the wing, made a tremendous difference for us. And I think since then, our 3-point defense has improved. Had the game against Boston where they broke the record or whatever, and certain games like that. But for the most part, we've been doing a tremendous job at defending the 3. In fact, the Knicks are top 5 in the NBA in 3-point defense, right? So I just think, it's very difficult for folks to make that argument. So I don't know. Let me get to someone. Yep. Go ahead.
I disagree. Tiz has been a great defensive mind and strategist dating back to his days as the lead defensive coordinator for Dr. Rivers in that 2008 championship Boston team. But it took him a while to evolve. And he wasn't guarding the 3 all the way back to Chicago or Minnesota or even his first year here. We were one of the worst 3-point defensive teams that first year in 2021. This has been a gradual evolution that this year he's finally taking full advantage of. And you named the 2 biggest things that he did. Actually, you left one off, but they coincide with each other. One is steaming away from drop coverage and actually have you switch on the perimeter and get out to the perimeter to guard these stretch 4s and 5s that you're facing on a nightly basis. 2 is inserting Quentin Grimes instead of Evan Fournier, which just improves your overall, what happens on the pick and roll, who ends up sliding over to defender.
No question.
Guard, or have a bid by to guard the 3 or 4 if it's setting a pick. Those type of things are crucial to keeping a man on the perimeter and not getting beat off the dribble. And 3 is Mitchell Robinson. The return of him allows you to have your best big man option out there who's athletic, long, and stretches who can actually defend and block 3-point shots. He is an anomaly that both Hartenstein and Sims can't replicate. And having him as a centerpiece and cornerstone to your defense improves your ability to guard a 3-point line in and of itself.
Right, and I think, and that's why this comment is saying, I think there is a combination of both. I think we both can be right at the same time, right? I just come down on people who blame Tibbs for a lot of problems that's wrong with the Knicks. I think there is a lot of different factors that go into it. You can say roster construction or lack of players that Tibbs likes or whatever. You know what I mean? So you can blame a lot of different things. I just don't like the people who tend to blame one thing. Like, for example, if the Knicks get into the playoffs and they don't perform, it's going to be Tibbs' fault no matter what. Right. Instead of, and I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but people tend to go overboard with certain narratives instead of looking at things from a total collective perspective. Right.
I like looking at the evidence, and the evidence before that Mavs game was that Tibbs was running some outdated systems, and his decision making was causing us to lose leads and lose games in crunch time. That changed. The evidence, once Mitchell Robinson came back and Josh Hart was implemented into the rotation, he also changed his approach to the game and seemed to lean more into hearing other voices and having other ideas around how we can be best equipped to close out games. And Josh Hart's been a good point of that. His ability to pull RJ Barrett when he's not playing well is something we haven't seen him do before. And this is his first season where he's actually putting his foot down and yanking him when he needs to be yanked. But now he has Josh Hart to be that guy to substitute in and take those minutes. So it's hard to do that when it's Evan Fournier or Cam Reddish or Kevin Knotts being the guy who would come and take those minutes. A lot easier when it's Josh Hart and you're 6-0 under his tenure. So I was critical of Tibbs when he deserved it, but I haven't said anything in weeks about firing Tibbs.
You haven't.
A miserable tape from a miserable fan. Now, I'm not a miserable fan. I'm enjoying it.
Absolutely not.
Winning comes first. At the playoffs, I'm going to watch. If it's Julius Randle doing a choke job, it's Julius Randle. If Tibbs goes back to what's comfortable and what we saw in November, December, I'm going to blame Tibbs. If Jalen Brunson dribbles the air out of the ball and goes into ISO mode, I'm going to blame Brunson. I have no issue putting blame where blame is due. I just don't judge the evidence that's put in front of me.
Yep, and listen, that's right. And that's why I got him on here to defend his take, ladies and gentlemen. Lee Escobedo is here with us. Let me just read a couple more comments before we get out of here. Wesley Robinson says, I have to give Tibbs credit. He's doing a good job, good coaching job, and the big three of Randall, Brunson, and IQ make this team dangerous. Remember, the big three used to be Randall, Brunson, and RJ, but apparently that's not what it is anymore. David L. says, Jaylen Brown. Okay, I don't want to talk about Jaylen Brown. Bricks Nation, we got a way better chance of getting Mikal Bridges from the Nets. That's a pickup that I would love the Knicks to get. I believe in his potential a lot, defensively and offensively. Mets, Knicks fan, let's go Mets. Right? Do not give Tibbs any credit. Okay. Mets, Nick. Yeah. Let's see. For the love of the game, salute to my brothers over there. He said he didn't utilize the roster last year to prepare the guys for this situation. But see, that's to me, that statement right there, to me, I just don't understand because you see what they're doing right now. Are they unprepared right now in this very moment? So I don't know. That's the part for me when people bring that part up.
Emmanuel Quickly's finishing games this season. He wasn't finishing games last season.
But is he unprepared for the current situation, though? That's what I'm saying. He's saying that he didn't utilize the roster last year to prepare the guys for this situation. So is Emmanuel Quickly unprepared right now?
I would say no, but he could have been more prepared. Like I said, those two paths to both led to the same thing at different rates, too.
I got you. I got you. Salute to my man, Ron Cleveland. Man. Salute to you, brother. And let me get one more in here. Based on how well we're playing, how can anyone still be talking trades? Listen, that's going to happen. It's the NBA, right? This team isn't a finished product. I'm sure the front office, they still have a job to do. There's going to be some moving parts, right? If the Knicks don't win, you still have to improve the team, right? So, people think that, you're going to get this player and this is the only player we're ever going to need. That player is going to take us to a championship. Things are constantly moving in the NBA, and a lot of the fans need to realize that. Well, Lee Escobedo, ladies and gentlemen, from Knick of Time Show, I'm going to leave the floor for you to, kind of introduce yourself, let the people know where they can find you, and then we'll close it up.
Yeah, man, I've been staying busy. I'm actually busting out an article a day here for the last 2 weeks. The NBA's just been on fire, so there's been a lot to write about. I've been covering the trade deadline, the buyout period, kind of like the reimagined landscape post All-Star break, and I've been busting out articles for The Guardian, Sportsnaut, Deadspin, Post and Toast, and just kind of all over the place covering the Knicks and the NBA at large, really focusing on how race, class, and gender intersect the sports world at large. Really appreciate you bringing me on the show tonight to be able to represent my takes, but also my guys, the KOT show. I didn't start the KOT show. I've only joined this season. Jay Ellis and Ryan have been doing it for damn near a decade, way before I got there. They're the real creators and originators of the podcast. I'm just blessed to be a co-host after the Knicks game. So I just want to give them all their props and their blessings, because they deserve it. And the two brilliant young Black entrepreneurs doing their thing over there on YouTube. So, man, support the guys. Follow my man Jay Ellis at the Knick Time Show on Twitter. Follow my man Ryan G on Twitter. And if you want to follow me, I'm @_Lee Escobedo.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Look at the description of this video. There's a link to the Knick of Time show there. There's a link to Lee's Twitter on there. Also, the latest article I can't even talk. The latest articles that he had for Deadspin. The article in question that we talked about for most of the show is also there as well, talking about the pros and cons of having Tom Thibodeau as a coach. And the most recent article that he wrote for Sportsnaut, talking about the acquisition of Josh Hart and how that's going to help us moving forward. So I thank Lee for coming on once again. Check him out on the Knick of Time show, ladies and gentlemen. Check him out and check out my guy Jay Ellis and Ryan G over there on the Knick of Time show. For all the folks over at MBK, for the chat, for Knick fans all over, it's your boy UnclefOOlio, and I'm going, ladies and gentlemen. I'll see you in the next episode of The Kontroversy.
Let's go.